Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So this is the compiled Albedo Math guide video. Basically, I know that if you've been watching my video so far, I have done about 4 to 5 Albedo videos, each time focusing on a specific weapon or specific topic. So this video is meant to bring everything together so that it's much more straightforward and easier for casual viewers or players to appreciate it. Because I do understand that my material may be a bit heavy since it's math guides, and because I try my best to give a complete analysis. So yeah, the material might be a bit too heavy for casuals, that I understand. So this is why we're doing a compiled guide here. So I'm not going to waste further time, we're going to go dive straight in. So here we have the rotation summary. Bear in mind that this is for 4-piece Husk. If you're using 2-piece Husk, 2-piece Petra, the recast of Albedo E is not required, so just remove that. Anything starting from the recast of Albedo E to be removed, for Albedo anyway. So you have a couple of different play styles. You have pure defense, you have hybrid, you have C2 hybrid, and C2 hybrid with FS. The rotations will take a very long time to talk about, so I just do one here, and I'll show the rest, but I won't be running through the rest of the rotations. You can check and you can pause the video at any time just to read it. Alright. Also, one thing to bear in mind is that these rotations are what I think are the best based on what I know now after some analysis, may be subject to change after Goro Itto is out. So bear in mind these are all for Itto comp. So first rotation for pure defense is you start with a Albedo E, you do an N1 to immediately trigger the E proc. This should grant you 2 stats. Okay. And then you have the flat slot. If you watch my Itto comp, you will know what I'm talking about. But no worries, I'll put the Itto comp video on the top right corner or the in-video links as well as in the description. Okay, so after your flat slot cast is his or her burst or skill as required, you change to Goro E, place down Goro's wall flat, but make sure not to hit any enemy to avoid the proc, so that when you switch to your Albedo and use M1, you are able to trigger the E proc immediately and get your third stack. Then you can recast your E and do the N1 E proc again. So yeah, we won't be able to get all 4 stats for Husk without wasting too much time. This is the best case scenario where you can just get 3 stats. And the reason why we are using Goro E and the flat slot after casting the first Albedo E is so that we meet the 4-second cooldown on Albedo's E. Okay. Now there may be a chance for it to be 4 stats if the stat on dealing initial cast damage is Snapshot, but I'm not hopeful on that, and I'll just take 3 as the purpose of the math, which means that second rotation onwards you will deal more damage, because second rotation onwards, once you cast your E after Itto's first burst ends, you will have your 4 stats. And the text in red here is just talking about always do an N1 after casting your E to immediately proc the E again. Okay, so your cooldown of the E proc is reset upon recast. So hybrid, this is the playstyle. Because you have burst, you don't need to cast out with Albedo E first, you can buff your Albedo first. And I did some testing, N1 was enough to trigger the E proc right after you cast your Albedo burst. But anyway, N2 is very fast, so just spend a normal attack each time you press N1, even with N2 it's still 4 seconds for this string. So the difference between hybrid and pure defense is the hybrid will take you up more time, more setup time, Albedo will take up more on field time. And you have C2 hybrid here, more or less the same, but some difference here because we want to get as many C2 sets as possible, and then you have this with Freedom Swan. Okay, so I'm not going to run through the rest of this. Now let's jump on to the next section, the artifact summary. So artifact summary is pretty straightforward. Artifact main stats: defense sense, Geo damage goblet, CR CD circlet to hit the CR CD stats below. Artifact substats wise, I would recommend CR CD defense percentage or CR if you want after 200 CD. Obviously the 4th stat is at that percent. Okay. Defense percentage after 200 CD, defense percentage will give you more DPS than CD. You can go CR if you want, but my general recommendation is to go 60 to 7% CR instead of following the golden ratio, because I believe RNG is evil. Having played so many gacha games, right? Having played so many games with crit, right? I have to say that Genshin is the only game I see people recommending higher than 60 to 70. In fact, if you have played other games like say Diablo 3, for example, Diablo series, people don't even go higher than 50 plus CR. Okay, but anyway, that's that. I do understand the whole math behind the golden ratio, okay? But the way I see it is, it's either you get 60 to 70% CR, which is enough, and you go for more crit damage so that you hit harder, or go for 100% CR. If you want to go for a high CR, go for 100% CR, but only if you can get more than 200% crit damage. That way your ratio will be even better than the golden ratio. But this is specific to this scenario, and who can fulfill this scenario? Itto. Okay? Now, I do believe that ER is not required in Ittocom with 3 geo characters, so that's why I'm not putting ER percentage here, but if you feel the need, sure. But 4th stat, I would recommend attack percent. Because there's no other stats to go for. And for the 4 weapons that we have done the math for, these are the CRCDs to target for. With C6 Goro, it will obviously be higher, because C6 Goro gives you crit damage. But you'll notice that we kept it at 200 because, like I said, after 200 crit damage, you should go for defense percentage if you want to hit harder. If you really want to go for CR, you can, but like I said, my recommendation 60 to 70. I know it's a bit ironic that I'm doing math videos and yet I don't follow the golden ratios exactly. But like I said, practical application. Next, we have the artifact comparison. So this is very straightforward. It's 4-piece Husk versus 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk. If you don't already know, I have already done comparison against the rest of the existing combination, and I assure you that 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk does better than those for each category. So for example, Burst, you have 2-piece Nobliss and 2-piece Petra. 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk will do better in the overall rotation. Alright. So these are the type of figures you can expect when you have Albedo Oni with no burst, Harbinger of Dawn with 4-piece Husk does about 15 to 17% better than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk, and so on and so forth. And the moment you bring in C0 R1 Itto, obviously no burst. When you do no burst with 4-piece Husk versus 2-piece Petra, it actually doesn't perform as well. That's because when you use 4-piece Husk on the first rotation, when you use burst, you get the most, how should I put it, you get the most stats. And you have to remember one very important thing, 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk is assuming no recast required. If you have to recast before, because Albedo's flower was destroyed by enemies, 4-piece Husk is better. So the main thing you gotta understand is that between 2-piece Petra, 2 Husk and 2 Petra, 2 Husk and 4-piece Husk, the 2 Petra, 2 Husk will have a shorter setup duration. That's because we are assuming that you don't need to recast. But if you have to recast because of other scenarios, for sure the 4-piece Husk will be better. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that whatever percentages you see here refers to 4-piece versus 4 Husk versus 2 Petra, 2 Husk within each specific category. This is not a comparison between burst and no burst. When you see no burst minus 7% versus minus 1 to 2% on burst, it does not necessarily mean that no burst is worse off than burst. You should not read the figures like this, alright? This is specific to each category and specific to 4-piece Husk versus 2 Petra, 2 Husk. And the percentage range that you see here is basically ranging from Geo Resonance, C2 plus Goro or C6 Goro. And obviously rate figures means that rate 2 Petra, 2 Husk is better. But if you have seen my overall recommendation, you know what I recommend across all the weapons, and not to worry, I will do a final TLDR as well for the artifact. Next, we are going to weapon summary. We'll look at Albedo only. We'll compare all 4 weapons, Harbinger of Dawn, Cinnabar, Spindle, Freedom Swan, Primordial, Jade Cutter. We'll compare Albedo only C0 together with C0 R1 Itto and together with C6 R5 Itto. And I'll do a final TLDR on artifact and weapon. For the issues / caveats with FS, as well as whether to pull or skip FS, since I've already covered that in the video when I talk about the pull or skip as well as the Constellation review / comparison for Albedo and Eula. That is already covered. This is already covered in that video, so we are not going to cover this. Okay, these two sessions we are not going to cover in this video. So, Albedo only. So obviously I have the damage, the full damage rotation. Then we have the DPS, which is damage per second, and then we do a percentage comparison. So you have Cinnabar, Spindle, Harbinger of Dawn, Freedom Zone, R1, R5, PJC, R1, R5. Okay, and these are the percentages figures that you see. So essentially this percentage is versus the Cinnabar, Spindle. If you see a negative figure, it means that this specific weapon is better than Cinnabar, Spindle in this specific category. Do you see how good Cinnabar, Spindle is? With just Albedo's damage being looked at here. Everything is black. There's only 2 cells that are red or negative, which is PJC R5. And I'm going to talk about this now. So we are comparing against Cinnabar, Spindle because it's a new weapon for Albedo. I think everyone will be more interested in how this weapon fares, which is the reason why it's the yardstick of measure here. Red figures implies weapon better. I've already covered this. So CS, Cinnabar, Spindle is so good that it's better than all other weapons other than the following scenarios. R5 PJC, marginally better with C2 plus Goro at talent level 199. If you don't already know this, normal attack, skill, and burst. And with a C2 Albedo with burst, then it can achieve the 3%, which is this figure. But once you go C6 Goro, PJC will actually lose out. CS will do better. CS will do better by 1%. Okay. So FS is obviously the worst performer here. If you see here, these are the Freedom Zone figures, and obviously the percentage figures are the bigger. The percentage differences are the biggest because in the first place, Freedom Zone is meant to buff Itto. We are only looking at Albedo damage here, for sure you will lose out. Now if you want more details, please check out the individual weapon videos I have made. I'll put the link in the top right corner of the individual links, and I'll put it in the description as well. Now let's look at Albedo plus C0R1 Itto to compare these weapons. Okay, because we need to know about the rotation. Whether or not, for example, if you go for something like a rotation that takes more on-field Albedo time, whether it's worth it. And whether it's worth it on which specific weapon. And that's what we are here to answer. So we have Albedo plus C0R1 Itto now. Obviously the damage figures are going to be much higher now. If you don't recall, we have something like 461k here. And now okay, this is 1 million by the way. Yeah, that's how high Itto's damage is. If you really want to know how high his damage is, it's about 590k at C0R1. Just within his burst rotation. Not the full 20 seconds by the way. This 20 seconds includes the setup time and then Itto during his burst. And obviously all the other characters using their skills and bursts as well. Although I did not include their damage figure, but the time accounts for that. Alright, so similar structure, the way that we are comparing. Now you'll see that with Itto in, C0R1 Itto in, Freedom Zone R5, not R1, gives you results that are better than Cinnabar, Spindle in terms of the overall team DPS. PJC is pretty consistent. The R5 is still doing better in these specific 2 categories. I know it's a bit surprising that Freedom Zone R1 is still losing out to Cinnabar, Spindle. But you gotta understand that we are talking about C0R1 Itto here, so your Itto is dealing lower damage than say C6R5, but he's still doing very high DPS at C0. And with Freedom Zone R1 buffing him, he's still not doing as much DPS as if he was using Cinnabar, Spindle. Why? Because Cinnabar, Spindle is that good. So see here, this is what I've been talking about. With C0R1 Itto factor in, R5 FS pulls ahead of CS by about 1 to 5%. As you can see here, 1 to 5% depending on talent levels. if you invest in your Albedo all the way to C5, because that's only you can get talent level 1, 12, 12, you can reduce the... You can end up doing so much more damage that Cinnabar Spindle does better. Right? But I don't really recommend getting any more constellations on Albedo. If you want to know what my thoughts are on Albedo's constellations, check out the video where I did the Albedo constellation review and comparison. And again, if you want more details, check out the individual weapon videos, yeah? I cover a lot more there. Alright, now let's talk about C6R5 Itto. So with Itto dealing more damage, now the Freedom Zone buffs, even at R1, deal more. Okay, there are even scenarios where R1 can do better than CS. But not realistic because you should be using Goro in an Itto comp. Okay? But at least it evens out with CS. But there are other caveats to that, and I already talked about those in my pool escape video. R5 on the other hand, the difference also increases between Cinnabar Spindle. So basically, you can interpret it as Cinnabar Spindle is about 8% worse off with C6 Goro versus R5 Freedom Zone. Okay. So with C6 R5 Itto factor in, you put FS pools ahead of CS by 6 to 9% to be best performer. But bear in mind, this is only the first rotation. There are other caveats and issues with Freedom Zone, especially if you intend to get more than C2 Itto, C2 or above Itto, then you have a problem with the downtime, etc. There's a lot of factors to consider for that, so I'm not going to go into those here. Just check out the pool escape video for that. Now, I'll move on to talk about the final TLDR. Because remember, I'm trying to make this a video that's more friendly to the casual viewers or players, so I need to keep the video short. It's already longer than I wanted to. So TLDR for Artifact. 4-piece Husk is better than 2-piece Husk in most... 2 Husk, 2 Petra in most scenarios. And 2 Petra, 2 Husk is better than existing options such as 2 Petra, 2 Norm or 2 Petra, 2 Defenders. If Burst is used, the few scenarios 2 Petra, 2 Husk is better in will only be marginally better. Okay, marginally better. 2 Petra, 2 Husk is assuming no request required. If you have the request because your ideal flower was destroyed by enemies, 4-piece Husk will always be better in that scenario. So my recommendation is to use 2 Petra, 2 Husk as a placeholder until you get 4 Husk. Okay, pretty straightforward for Artifact. Now let's talk about weapon final TLDR. Cinnabar Spindle CS is OP AF and performs better than all other weapons other than R5 PJC being only marginally better, and then you have FS when you talk about team DPS. But I did not mention that here because, like I said, FF do have caveats attached to it. I'll talk most about those in here. In terms of Cinnabar Spindle versus PJC, use Cinnabar Spindle and give PJC to another sword user. That's the TLDR that can come with based on the math. In terms of CS versus FS Freedom Swan, if you do not have R5 Freedom Swan, use Cinnabar Spindle. If you have R5 Freedom Swan, but your Itto is going to be C0 R1 or lower, use Cinnabar Spindle, because R5 Freedom Swan is only 1 to 5% better, but only for the first rotation. Your Freedom Swan buff is not going to be active on the second rotation, other than specific scenarios. But like I said, those details are in the pool escape. The pool escape for the, at least for the FS portion, the pool escape video will cover the full story. Okay, so I don't want people looking at this video and coming to tell me to complain about certain aspects of FS or telling me certain aspects of FS that I have already covered in the pool escape video. So please do check that out. Thank you. Now, if you have, okay, I talked about this already. So the next point, the last point is if you have R5 Freedom Swan and your Itto is going to be C6 R5, use R5 FS only if your Albedo is C2 or lower. Why? Because if you see, you do get a drop when you go higher. Because remember, Freedom Swan is about buffing your Itto. When you get your Albedo to C5 or above, what happens is that Cinnabar Spindle will do even better. Cinnabar Spindle will skill better along with your constellations as opposed to Freedom Swan. Put it that way, because the constellations that are giving you damage are the talent, the C3 and C5. That's the reason why. Okay. So I hope this final TLDR is helpful to you guys, especially the casual viewers or players, and also maybe helpful to the folks who are also more keen on the overall math analysis, because at least this gives you a compiled view. So thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, remember the video and click subscribe for more. Okay, thanks. Bye.